Alright, so here we have a scene setup from City of Rott 1 from 2005. And this is Fred in the pizzeria, and there's a zombie approaching him, and he's going to lift his walker to dispatch the zombie. So the way I would set it up in image ready under Photoshop was very similar to this. This is how the layers would appear, and the original let's see, scale of it. Let's take a look. That would have been in pixels 720 by 480, which is considered a 4:3 ratio. Very small screen size, but back in 2005, that was before a lot of the HD TVs, the 16 by 9 ratio started taking over. So I was still thinking in terms of a square image for like a TV. And a big reason for that was the memory of my computer was pretty low, so I wanted to have something smaller in scale so I could render it quicker and get it done faster. So that's why I went for the 4:3 aspect ratio for City of Rott 1. And then City of Rott, well, actually, Dead Fury and Shock Invasion, that I booted up to 960 by 540, I believe. And then I just created a letterbox, top and bottom, to give it a more theatrical look to it. But now with City of Rott Origin, I'm just doing 1920 by 1080. And one question would be, well, why not just go for 4K? And that's because 4K takes forever to render and load, and the file sizes are so much bigger. And for small feature and a small studio like me, I just don't I don't see the big advantage of 4K over regular 2K 1080p. So that's why I'm still doing the regular HD instead of 4K. I mean, I guess you could up-res it to 4K, but getting back to this is called a scene setup, and I have all my layers in here. Now, this is not image ready. This is a program called GIMP, and it's very good on this Mac, but when I updated it on PC, it's just not as good as not as easy to use, I would say. I mean, it's the tools are much different than they are here. So I'm still using this old version here, but there's no animation for this. I did try to figure out how to do it, but it's not ideal for this program. So here you have Fred, and you can see his face, and he's got the mouth. This is for the letter M, and this is for or the letter B, and this is for the letter A or the letter E. This is for letter T, for example, or a grr, like he's growling. This is for the letter when he's saying cool, like cool. So he'd start off with a C mouth, I'd call it, for cool. He starts with cool, and then he goes cool. And to end it on the L, you could do a 2 mouth or a 5 mouth, because it shows his tongue to finish with a cool, as though he's just finishing that word. and then you just keyframe it, but there's no timeline here. But this would have been a timeline in ImageReady. I can't load up the program because it's on my old computer, and this is the newer Mac, but this is still an old computer that I still use, since I prefer the Mac interface. Alright, so let's get to the animation. Now that I have that out of the way, let's say you want to animate him talking. Let's say you want to have him lift his walker to eliminate the zombie on the way. So let's take a look at that zombie. Now in ImageReady, I think I would have one frame, and then I'd have them in the positions here, and the visible image and all that set up here. But then I'd go to the next frame. I think I typed in, well, or just click on new frame. So then in the new frame, what you do is you just click on the next item, and then you move it slightly to the right, and that would be your new frame. And Fred over here is just standing around getting ready to defend himself. So then here I am, I'm going to move that to a new frame, and we're going to move him over yet again. Now he's in a walk cycle, so we're going to have him go to the third frame. And you can see I only had like 3 main walk cycle keyframes here, and this was pre-animated by itself in ImageReady Photoshop. That was the 1999 program, and then I just imported this character right into here along with Fred and everybody else. So now we click on a new frame. You can't see it here, but then I would click on this, and it would just automatically know, okay, that's the frame that was selected, so we're just gonna render that. And now Fred's gonna take action here. So what I did is, back in 2005, I pre-animated him, because in ImageReady, let's say you could rotate and scale it, but as soon as you did that with this layer, it became permanent. So let's say you wanted him in this frame here. So frame 1, let's say he was like this. If I took this frame here and said, oh, well, I'm going to have him rotate like this, and just do that, because then he'll be backing up or something. What'll happen is frame 1, it now looks like this, and frame 10, for example, now looks like this. So your image is permanently affected by that rotation. That's why you couldn't rotate or scale effectively in ImageReady. That's why I had to pre-animate everything. So rather than do that, I said, okay, well, I'm just gonna create different layers, and then I'm just gonna import that in with those motions preset. So I could do the rotation and then flatten it, and then create that layer to give the impression of animation. So that's why I had such a limited animation style in City of Rott 1. Although it does look more grounded than City of Rott Otherworld, which was too floaty and too smooth. I did compare them carefully and look at them in recent times, and I do agree it was a little too smooth for the style. So that's why Origin, I'm trying to get back to a more grounded, gritty, less frames animation style, make it look more natural and hand-drawn, hand-animated. So Here we have, and of course, thanks for all the feedback on that. So here we have the zombie. Let's say I clicked on new frame. So now I have this happening here, and it's just reading these frames that I pick for the new frame. So maybe I'm on frame 11 now, and I could move Fred back, but let's see. Like, see how those are linked there? I think I would have to, in other words, to have Fred move, I'd have to relink him separately, like go like this and say, okay, I want him to move back a little, so I'm just going to have him push back here in frame 12, and then that frame would automatically just be that. Now press next frame, and then here he is here, and you can see he's almost about to hit the zombie. And let's see, I wouldn't want him behind the zombie, because then you get that effect and it looks like he's not even hitting him. So let's see, 4 was right there, and then you'd press next frame, and then next frame you'd have this animation. Here's where I'm going to bring in the blood splatter of the zombie, and you'll see that right there. And this is where I'm going to bring in this, but before I did that, I would have had this zombie move closer, so I would have had the zombie probably right, see what happened there? Probably right about there. See how you gotta unlink those? And then Fred on frame 15 or whatever would be like that. Now the blood would start to be going like that. And I could duplicate it in Image Ready, so you could have this one going there, that one going there. And you could initially rotate it, but that would be permanent, just to vary it up a little. So that would be in all the frames, that rotation there. So then here on frame 15, for example, I'd have that going on. So I pre-animated this zombie to look like he's bursting apart on the impact. And then here, with this blood on frame 16, for example, I'm going to start to fade it away with the opacity. And then these splatters would be going back like that. And you can see what you have underneath. And I'm gonna do the same type of similar effect as with Dead Fury, which I thought had really good gory effects in there. And similar to City Rott, instead of City Rott Otherworld, which I had these big blobs of splatter, and it just covered everything. You didn't get to see any of the switch of the zombie face or anything, so it was less interesting looking back on it now. At the time, I thought it was, oh, this is a pretty cool effect, but it covered too much, and it became too much of the same with every attack. Here it's unique because you could see his face is being deformed in a unique way. So then Fred on frame 18, for example, is bringing his walker back because he threw it up there to defend himself from the rotworm zombie. And these would be fading out. And then, let's see, frame 17, you'd probably have something like that. The zombie's going to start to fall at this point. So what I want to do is have the zombie, you can't rotate him now, because if I do, I'd have every frame rotated. So I'd have to create a duplicate if I wanted to rotate him. I think I could do this in Image Ready, and that you could. No, I don't think I could. It had to be done ahead of time. well, maybe something simple like this I could do, and then you just disappear the other layer, make invisible. And then frame 19, for example, is probably like that, and this would fade out almost completely, and then you wouldn't need the blood in there anymore. Frame 20, you'll be back to this, and then this zombie would probably be about there, or just moving back. And then let's say frame 21, Fred's back to his first pose, and this zombie is down here, almost off screen. You might as well just make him invisible. And there it is. That's how I set up animation within Image Ready back in 2005 on my old G4 Mac computer. And this was the exact same setup that I used. As you can see, it's a little pixelated, and of course the image scale in pixels is 720 by 480. You can see how tiny that was. Now I would be using 1920 by 1080p. I'll see what happened there. 1080, and that's HD parameters. Ratio. I'm not going to scale it now, but you can see how huge of a difference that was. But I was watching the 720 by 480 image on DVD and on when it's on Tubi, and on a small monitor it looks good, and on a bigger monitor it still holds the image, but of course if you look real close you could see the imperfections a little better. But the thing with Tubi is I believe they just reduce everything to 720p anyway for the resolution. But that's it, and that's how to do the animation. That's how I would, like, for example, if this was by itself and I had Fred all by himself here, this would have been the way I would have animated it. Like, this was the original scale. You can see how tiny that is. But I'd have all these individual pieces of Fred. His arms would be free. His hands would have separate piece. The face would be separate. Similar to how I have all of this. See how that's all separate, but his arms would be free. And then I would take that image, and then you could just go, alright, so have his head rotate back. You'd want to link all of those, and then just you'd say, okay, wait, before I do that, you'd say, okay, I have that image there, so let's say this program's pretty cool. You could do what's called new from visible, which is really neat. And it flattens it instantly. So you have that, and then I don't think that was available in Image Ready or Photoshop back then. So then with that, let's say I want his face to look upward in an animation. So then you would rotate that, and this is how you would get the effect by doing that, and then you'd say, okay, flatten that one, and that would be the next layer. So let's go even further. Like, this could have been his arm, for example, rotating, but in this instance it's his face. So we'll rotate that, and none of this would have affected what was happening in Image Ready, because I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to import those layers, and let's give him a different mouth for that image. Alright, he's got, okay, there it is. So then his head is a little too far back by now. That's a little better. And then we're just going to go new from visible, and it creates that new layer. And then this would have been the layers these would have been the layers I would have imported into Photoshop Image Ready, and you could see how that was pre-animated, and that's how you get the rotation within City Rott 1, just like that, because you couldn't do it on each individual layer without completely permanently affecting that layer. So that gives you an idea of the difficulty of Image Ready as a very limited program. I still have that old computer, but the rendering, if I went to 1920 by 1080p on that old computer, it would have took forever. It took long enough with the 720 by 480 and 960 by 540. So that's another reason I don't use that computer anymore. But thanks for watching. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, share, hit the bell icon. I appreciate all the fans. Thanks for supporting City Rott and my other films. I appreciate it. As City Rott Origin, I'm working on the trailer for August 8th, 2026. That'll be close to 20 years since the August 6th, 2006 release on DVD. But thanks for watching. Bye.